The emergency lights in the Galactic Council chamber cast red shadows across 200 different alien faces. Ambassador Jinsu Park stood alone at the center of the massive circular room, his dark suit a small patch of black against the towering representatives surrounding him. He did not look nervous. That itself was unusual. Commander Zekthar of the Vorath Empire rose from his platform, his forearms spreading wide in a gesture that every species present recognized as dominance. The Vorath were massive creatures, standing nearly 3 meters tall, with thick gray skin covered in bony ridges. Their eyes glowed a dull orange, and their teeth were designed for tearing meat. In the 200 years since they had joined the galactic community, they had conquered 47 star systems. Nobody had ever stopped them. Humans, Zekthar's voice boomed through translation devices. You are children playing in a garden you do not understand. Your species has been in space for only 80 years. 80 years. We have forgotten wars longer than your entire space history. Ambassador Park said nothing. He simply clasped his hands behind his back and waited. Zekthar's eyes narrowed. You have established 23 colonies in that short time. You spread like a disease, making friends with weak species, trading your primitive goods, acting as if you belong among the great powers. He leaned forward, and his voice dropped to a threatening growl. You do not belong. You are an infestation that must be controlled. The council chamber remained silent. The Quelari representative, a being made mostly of floating crystalline structures, dimmed her lights in what might have been concern. The Thexian ambassador, reptilian and ancient, closed his third eyelid slowly. They had all seen this before. The Vorath did not make empty threats. The Vorath Empire hereby delivers an ultimatum to the human species. Zekthar continued. You have 30 days to surrender all colonial holdings to our authority. Your colony ships will be impounded. Your trade vessels will be restricted to your home system. Your military, such as it is, will be dissolved. Earth will become a protectorate under Vorath guidance. He showed his teeth. This is mercy. This is the only mercy you will receive. And if we refuse? Park's voice was calm, almost curious. Zekthar laughed, a sound like grinding stone. If you refuse, we will demonstrate what happens to species who do not understand their place. We will burn your colonies one by one. We will shatter your stations. We will hunt down every human ship that dares to leave your home system. And when we are finished, humanity will exist only on Earth, a cautionary tale for other primitive species who think they can play among the stars. He paused. Do you know what happened to the Keltarians, the Movask collective? They chose to fight us. Now, ask any species in this chamber if they remember what the Keltarians looked like. Ask them where the Movask homeworld was. Silence answered him. The Keltarians and Movask had been completely erased from existence 70 years ago. Their worlds were lifeless rocks now. Even their cultural records had been destroyed. Park nodded slowly, as if considering this information for the first time. I understand. You are offering us the choice between submission and extinction. Finally, the primitive understands. Zekthar settled back into his seat. You have 30 days. The countdown begins now. We will respond within the stated time frame, Park said simply. The Vorath commander seemed disappointed by the lack of fear in the human's voice. You may leave. Go back to your little blue world and explain to your people how badly their diplomats have failed them. Park turned to leave, then stopped. He looked back at Zekthar with an expression that several species would later describe as strange. Not angry. Not afraid. Just evaluating. Commander, may I ask one question? Speak quickly, human. In all your conquests, how many species actually surprised you? Zekthar snorted. None. Weak species D, predictably. I see. Thank you for your honesty. Park walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the quiet chamber. As the human disappeared through the doors, the council erupted in whispered conversations. The Thexian ambassador leaned toward the Quillari representative. The humans are a pleasant species. It is unfortunate they arrived so late. They have no chance against the Vorath. Bezises represented. The Vorath. The Quillari dimmed thoughtfully. Did you notice his face? He did not seem worried. That, denial perhaps. Or ignorance. They are very young. Over the next 3 days, something unusual happened. Human civilian ships began returning to their home system from all corners of known space. Trade vessels broke their contracts. Colony supply runs were canceled. Passenger liners changed course mid-flight. Within 72 hours, nearly every human civilian vessel was either in the Sol system or heading there at maximum speed. The human military went completely silent. This was noted by every intelligence service in the galaxy. The Vorath Military Command reviewed the reports with satisfaction. The humans were clearly evacuating, preparing to abandon their colonies without a fight. It was the smart choice. The cowardly choice, but smart. But some observers were not so certain. A Thexian intelligence analyst named Rixthan had been studying humanity since their first contact 80 years ago. He had watched them carefully, noting patterns that others missed. Humans smiled constantly, which made most species think they were harmless. They offered trade agreements before military pacts. They built schools on their colonies before fortresses. They seemed soft, but Rixthan had noticed something else. In 80 years, humanity had been involved in 17 minor conflicts with pirates, raiders, and aggressive species. They had won all 17, not through superior technology, which they did not have. Not through greater numbers, which they also lacked. They won through unusual tactics that no one expected. Rix then sent a coded message to the Galactic Council. Recommend caution. Human behavioral patterns suggest preparation, not retreat. No one listened. The Vorath were too powerful. Everyone knew how this would end. On the 5th day after the ultimatum, Ambassador Park sent a single message to the Galactic Council. It was brief. Humanity declines the Vorath terms. We will defend our sovereignty. Well. The message was followed by complete silence from all human channels. Zekthar laughed when he heard the news. Stupid primitives. They choose extinction. Very well. We will grant their wish. He did not notice that several species in the council chamber looked troubled. The humans had not sounded defiant in their message. They had not threatened or postured. They had simply stated a fact and gone silent. That silence worried those who were paying attention. Somewhere in the Sol system, in hidden facilities that had been built over the course of 70 years, humanity began final preparations. Weapons, systems that no other species knew existed, were brought online. Soldiers who had trained their entire lives for a war everyone hoped would never come received their deployment orders. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UHSV Indomitable, a ship whose existence was still classified, and looked at the countdown timer. 25 days, until the Vorath deadline. She smiled grimly. Let them come. Let them learn what it costs to threaten Earth. Intelligence Officer Krallis reviewed the surveillance data for the 3rd time. And for the 3rd time, the information made no sense. The humans were supposed to be panicking. They were supposed to be evacuating their colonies, begging for mercy, or preparing desperate last stands. Instead, they were doing something that looked almost like business as usual. Krallis was smaller than most Vorath, which made her suitable for intelligence work rather than frontline combat. Her orange eyes flickered as she processed the reports coming from assets across human space. Something was wrong. She could feel it. Report! Commander Zekthar growled as he entered the intelligence center. Sir, the human colonies are not evacuating. They are fortifying. Construction activity has increased by 300%. They are building defensive installations around all major settlements. Let them build walls. Walls did not save the Keltarians. Yes, sir. But there is more. Kralis brought up a star map. Human military vessels have disappeared from our sensors. All of them. We tracked 47 warships last week. Now we can find only 12. And those 12 are clearly decoys, broadcasting identification signals while performing obvious patrol patterns. Zekthar snorted. They are hiding. Cowards always hide. Perhaps. But our scout ships report unusual readings in 14 systems. Energy signatures that do not match any known human technology. Which means, sir, that we may not know as much about human military capabilities as we assumed. The commander's eyes narrowed dangerously. Are you suggesting the primitives are a threat to the Vorath Empire? Kralis knew she was taking a risk, but intelligence officers were trained to report facts, not comfortable lies. Sir, I am suggesting that a species does not survive 80 years of space exploration in a dangerous galaxy by being weak. I am suggesting that their choice to refuse our terms, despite our demonstrated power, implies confidence in their defensive capabilities. Zekthar was silent for a moment. Then he activated a display showing human history. I have studied these creatures. Kralis. They are fractured, chaotic. For thousands of years, they fought among themselves. They created weapons designed to kill other humans. They nearly destroyed their own world multiple times. He smiled. They are violent, yes, but violence without discipline is just noise. They have never faced an enemy like us. What Zekthar did not know, what no Vorath knew, was that human intelligence services had been studying them just as carefully. In fact, humanity had been preparing for this exact scenario since first contact with the galactic community. On Earth, in a facility buried 3 kilometers under the Australian outback, General Marcus Webb reviewed the final reports from Strategic Command. The room was filled with officers from every branch of human military service, and every face showed the same grim determination. All right, people. The Vorath think they know us. Let us review what they think they know. Webb activated a holographic display. They believe we have 47 warships. We actually have 412, most of which have never been detected because they have been running silent since construction. An Air Force colonel spoke up. Sir, the Vorath have studied our historical conflicts. They know we fight amongst ourselves. Correct. And they have drawn exactly the wrong conclusion from that information. They think internal conflict makes us weak. They do not understand that it made us innovators. Every human nation developed different military doctrines, different weapons, different strategies. When we unified for space exploration, we did not choose one approach. We combined all of them. A Navy captain asked, "What about their technology advantage?" The Vorath have been in space for over 1,000 years. Webb smiled coldly. Yes, they have. And their military technology has not significantly changed in 300 years. Do you know why? Because they have never needed to change it. Overwhelming force has always been sufficient. He pulled up another display. Meanwhile, humanity has been innovating constantly. We have designed weapons specifically to counter Vorath physiology, Vorath tactics, Vorath technology. We have run 10,000 simulations. We know their patterns better than they do. 2. Another officer raised her hand. General, the Council thinks we are being reckless. Some of our own civilian government officials think we should have accepted terms. I am aware. Webb's expression softened slightly. And I understand their fear. The Vorath have exterminated 2 species. That is terrifying. But here is what those officials do not understand. The Keltarians and the Movask were caught by surprise. They were not prepared. They thought they could negotiate after the Vorath attacked. They were wrong. He paused. We have been preparing for this since the day we learned about the Vorath. We will not be surprised. We will not be unprepared. And we will not negotiate after they attack, because we will not give them the chance. Back in Vorath space, Krallis received a new piece of intelligence that made her blood run cold. One of their deep cover agents had managed to intercept a fragment of human military communications. It was encrypted, but the encryption was deliberately weak, as if the humans wanted it to be decoded. The message contained a video file. Krallis opened it and watched. The video showed human soldiers conducting training exercises. But these were not ordinary exercises. The weapons they were using created effects that should not have been possible. Energy shields that absorbed direct hits from plasma weapons. Missiles that seemed to change direction in mid-flight, adapting to countermeasures in real time. Small fighter craft moving with impossible agility, pulling maneuvers that should have liquefied their pilots. The video ended with a simple message in Vorath language. Training footage from colony defense forces. This is what our reservists can do. Imagine what our actual military can do. Krallis immediately brought the video to Zekthar. The commander watched it 3 times. His expression grew darker with each viewing. This is a deception. It must be. The humans are trying to frighten us with special effects. Sir, our technical analysts have reviewed the footage. They believe it is genuine. Then our analysts are cowards. Zekthar slammed his fist on the console. I do not care what tricks the humans have developed. We have conquered 47 systems. We have destroyed entire civilizations. Some primitive apes with clever toys will not intimidate the Vorath Empire. Krallis said nothing. She had delivered the information. What the commander did with it was his responsibility. 3 days later, Zekthar made his decision. The humans had insulted the Vorath by refusing their generous terms. They had dared to threaten the Empire with their ridiculous propaganda video. This could not stand. We attack in 3 days, he announced to the War Council. Not in 25 days as originally planned. We will catch them unprepared. The target is the human colony of New Sol, their largest settlement outside their home system. We will obliterate it as a demonstration. And then we will offer terms again. This time, they will accept. Krallis felt a sick certainty in her stomach. The commander was making a mistake. But she was only an intelligence officer. She had no authority to countermand his orders. The Vorath attack fleet assembled quickly. 200 warships, enough firepower to crack a continent. They entered FTL transit toward New Sol with absolute confidence. They emerged from FTL space expecting to find a panicking colony, desperately trying to evacuate civilians. Instead, they found nothing. New Sol was empty. The orbital stations were dark. The surface settlements showed no life signs. It was as if every human had simply vanished. In the center of the system, a single communications buoy waited. As the Vorath fleet approached, it activated and broadcast a message on all frequencies. Ambassador Jinsu Park's face appeared on every Vorath ship screen. Commander Zekthar, Park said calmly, you were given 30 days to reconsider. You have chosen to attack after 9. You were offered peace. You have chosen war. You threatened our colonies. You threatened our people. You promised extinction. Park's expression did not change, but his voice grew colder. You made the wrong choice. The transmission ended. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then, the Vorath sensors detected 400 human warships decloaking around them. Krallis, watching from the flagship, whispered a prayer to gods she did not believe in. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it was over, the Vorath attack fleet no longer existed. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos when the news arrived. 200 Vorath warships, an entire attack fleet, destroyed in 17 minutes. The numbers seemed impossible. The timeline seemed impossible. Everything about it seemed impossible. Yet, the sensor data did not lie. Thexian Ambassador Rixthan stood at his platform, his scaled hands gripping the railing as he watched the tactical replay for the 5th time. The humans had not simply defeated the Vorath. They had executed them with surgical precision. How? The Quelari representative's crystalline structure flickered with agitation. The Vorath have superior numbers, superior technology, 200 years of conquest experience. How did the humans do this? Rix then replayed the key moment. Watch carefully. The Vorath entered the system in standard attack formation. The humans were waiting, cloaked. When they decloaked, they were already in optimal firing positions. Every human ship targeted specific systems on Vorath vessels. Not the hulls, not the weapons, the engines and power cores. Disabling shots, another ambassador observed. No. Killing shots. The humans knew exactly where to hit and what would happen when they did. Those Vorath ships did not just lose power. They suffered catastrophic core failures, chain reactions. Rix then's third eyelid closed slowly. The humans have studied Vorath ship design so thoroughly that they turned their own vessels into bombs. A new transmission appeared on the central display. Ambassador Park's face filled the screen. He looked tired but calm. Members of the Galactic Council. Humanity has engaged Vorath military forces in self-defense after they attacked our colony at New Sol. We have prevailed. However, we take no satisfaction in this outcome. We gave Commander Zekthar 30 days to reconsider his ultimatum. He chose to attack after only 9 days. Park paused. One side, and we self-canto, and one side, the Vorath Empire declared their intention to exterminate humanity. We are simply responding to an existential threat with appropriate force. We will continue to respond until the threat is neutralized. The transmission ended. Appropriate force, the Quelari whispered. They destroyed an entire fleet. No, Rix then corrected. They demonstrated capability. Now watch what they do next. What happened next surprised everyone except Rix then. The human fleet did not attack Vorath worlds. They did not target civilian populations. They did not bombard cities or industrial centers. Instead, they began systematically destroying infrastructure that most species would not even think about. Mining operations in asteroid fields, refueling stations in deep space, communications relay satellites, automated cargo vessels, supply depots, everything that supported the Vorath military machine but posed no threat to civilian life. Within a week, Vorath military forces began experiencing supply shortages. Within 2 weeks, their fleet movements became restricted due to fuel limitations. Within 3 weeks, their military communications network was operating at 30% capacity. Commander Zekthar watched his empire crumble with growing rage and confusion. The humans were fighting a war he did not understand. Where were the glorious space battles? Where were the invasion fleets? The humans were acting like parasites, nibbling away at the foundations of Vorath power instead of facing them directly. Find their fleet, he ordered Krallis. Find them and destroy them. Sir. We cannot find them. They strike and disappear. Our sensors cannot track them when they cloak. Then attack their colonies. Make them come to us. Krallis pulled up a star map. Sir, we tried. 3 separate task forces were sent to human colonies. All 3 were destroyed before reaching their targets. The humans are not defending their colonies. They are hunting our ships. Zekthar stared at the map, showing Vorath territory. Red markers indicated destroyed facilities. There were hundreds of them. This is not honorable warfare. This is cowardice. Sir, with respect, this is effective warfare. Our military is being strangled. We cannot sustain operations at current levels for more than 2 months. 2 months is sufficient to crush primitives, but it was not sufficient. The Vorath Empire had been built on conquest and maintained through constant resource extraction from conquered systems. Their economy was a military economy. Everything supported the war machine. When that machine began to fail, the entire empire began to fail with it. Civil unrest started on the outer colonies. Vorath civilians who had never questioned their government began asking difficult questions. Why were the humans winning? How could primitives defeat the mighty Vorath? Was their leadership incompetent? Zekthar made a decision born of desperation. If the humans would not engage in honorable combat, he would force them to. He ordered strikes on human civilian targets, stations, trade vessels, even colony ships filled with families. The orders were transmitted. They were never executed. Every Vorath ship sent to attack civilian targets was intercepted and destroyed before reaching their targets. The humans had predicted this escalation. They had positioned forces to prevent it. The civilian vessels Zekthar thought he was targeting had been evacuated weeks ago. Kralis understood then what was happening. The humans had not been lucky. They had not been clever in the moment. They had planned this entire war before it started. Every Vorath move had been anticipated, countered, and turned into a trap. "Sir," she said quietly, "they knew. They knew everything we would do." "What are you saying?" "I am saying that the humans have been studying us since they first learned we existed. They analyzed every conflict in our history. They identified our patterns, our tactics, our strategies. They built their entire military specifically to counter us." Kralis brought up comparison data. "Look at their weapons, their ships, their doctrine. Everything is designed to exploit Vorath weaknesses we did not know we had." Zekthar looked at the data and felt something he had not experienced in his long military career. Fear. A new transmission came through. Not from Ambassador Park this time, but from Admiral Sarah Chen, commander of human military forces. "Commander Zekthar, this is your final warning. Surrender now. Order all Vorath military forces to stand down. If you continue this war, we will continue to dismantle your military capacity. We will not stop until you are incapable of threatening anyone, ever again." Zekthar's rage overcame his fear. "Never. The Vorath do not surrender to primitives." Admiral Chen's expression did not change. "Then you have chosen your fate. What happens next is your responsibility." The transmission ended. Over the next 2 weeks, humanity escalated their campaign. They stopped being subtle. Vorath military shipyards were destroyed. Training facilities were obliterated. Command centers were reduced to rubble. Every single installation that produced or supported Vorath military forces became a target. The Vorath tried to fight back, but they were fighting blind. Their communications were compromised. Their supply lines were severed. Their ships ran out of fuel and ammunition. Entire fleets were stranded in deep space, helpless. On the 37th day since the original ultimatum, Kralis received intelligence that made her sick. A Vorath battle group, operating independently and refusing to surrender, had armed a planet cracker weapon. They were heading toward Earth. They intended to kill billions of humans in one final act of vengeance. She immediately sent the information to human forces. The response was immediate and devastating. The rogue battle group was intercepted 3 light-years from Earth and destroyed down to the last ship. The humans had not taken chances. They had not shown mercy. But they did something else that surprised Kralis. They sent her a message. "Intelligence Officer Kralis, thank you for the warning. You saved lives today, both human and Vorath. We will remember this." She stared at the message for a long time. The humans could have killed her entire species by now. They had the capacity. Instead, they were thanking her for doing the right thing. Perhaps the humans were not the monsters Zekthar had claimed they were. Perhaps the monsters had been Vorath all along. Galactic Council emergency session resumed. Ambassador Park stood once again in the center of the chamber. The Vorath Empire attempted to deploy planet cracker weapons against Earth. This represents attempted genocide. We can no longer accept partial measures. The Galactic Council must act, or humanity will act alone. The council chamber fell silent. Every species present understood what Park was saying. The humans were done playing defense. The question now was whether anyone could stop what came next. The planet cracker missile traveled through space at near light speed, aimed directly at Earth. It was an old Vorath design. Crude, but effective. When it detonated, It would create a chain reaction in the planet's mantle that would split continents and boil oceans. Billions would die. Commander Zekthar had launched it himself from his flagship, the last functioning Vorath military vessel of significant size. His crew was down to skeleton numbers. His empire was in ruins. But he would not die knowing the humans had survived. If the Vorath Empire ended today, humanity would end with it. Distance to target? He asked. 18 minutes to Earth orbit, Commander. Zekthar smiled. 18 minutes, until humanity learned the price of humiliating the Vorath. He did not know that Earth's defense grid had been watching the missile since the moment it launched. He did not know that the Sol system had been fortified for 60 years, ever since humanity first encountered hostile aliens. He did not know that what was about to happen had been planned and practiced 10,000 times. Admiral Chen stood in the command center deep beneath Earth's surface, watching the missile's trajectory on her display. Around her, hundreds of officers worked with calm efficiency. They had trained for this moment their entire careers. Interceptors away. Her tactical officer reported, 300 defense satellites, hidden among orbital debris and disguised as civilian equipment, activated simultaneously. They did not fire weapons. Instead, they generated an overlapping network of gravitational fields, creating a maze of spatial distortions that would shred anything trying to pass through. The Planet Cracker missile hit the first field and immediately began to tumble. Its guidance system tried to compensate, but the gravitational interference was too severe. It veered off course by 17 degrees. That was enough. A human interceptor, a small craft barely larger than a fighter, matched velocity with the missile and deployed an electromagnetic pulse directly into its control systems. The missile went dead, its warhead still armed but its guidance destroyed. A recovery team carefully secured the weapon and towed it away from Earth. The entire interception took 43 seconds. On Zekthar's flagship, the crew watched in disbelief as their final weapon failed. Impossible, Zekthar whispered. The missile was already at attack velocity. Nothing can intercept at that speed. Kralis, still at her station despite the deteriorating situation, pulled up the sensor data. Sir, Earth is surrounded by defense systems we never detected. The entire star system is a fortress. They have been building these defenses for decades. Then we strike with everything we have left. Ram the flagship into Earth, if we must. Sir, we have nothing left. This ship is the last. Zekthar looked around his command deck. She was right. Every other vessel was destroyed or stranded. The mighty Vorath Empire, 200 years of conquest, reduced to one damaged flagship. Then we fighting, he said. Kralis made a decision in that moment. She pulled her sidearm and pointed it at Zekthar. No. We surrender. I will not let you kill the last Vorath crew. In a pointless gesture, Zekthar stared at her in shock. Traitor. Realist, sir. You have already lost this war. Do not lose our species as well. Before Zekthar could respond, the ship's communications activated without input from the crew. A human voice filled the bridge. Vorath flagship. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Human Space Forces. Your weapons are locked by our electromagnetic countermeasures. Your engines are disabled by gravitational fields. You cannot fight. You cannot flee. You cannot self-destruct. There was a pause. Commander Zekthar, you attempted to exterminate my species. You tried to kill 8 billion civilians. You launched a weapon designed to crack my homeworld. Do you understand what you have done? Zekthar said nothing. You have crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. You have forced us to make a decision we hoped never to make. Chen's voice was cold, completely devoid of emotion. Your attack on Earth will be analyzed by every species in the galaxy. They will study the weapon you used. They will note that you deliberately targeted civilians. They will understand that you chose genocide. Get to the point, human. Zekthar snarled. The point, Commander, is that you have set a precedent. The Vorath Empire has demonstrated that it will attempt total extermination when faced with defeat. Therefore, the Vorath Empire can no longer be permitted to exist in any form that might threaten others. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Kralis understood immediately. You are going to erase us, like we erased the Keltarians and the Movask. No, Chen replied, not like you did. We will not kill civilians. We will not destroy your culture. We will not glass your worlds. But we will ensure that the Vorath can never threaten anyone again. Every military installation will be destroyed. Every weapons facility will be demolished. Every warship will be reduced to scrap. Your species will survive, but your empire will not. You cannot do this, Zekthar said, but his voice lacked conviction. We already are. Human forces are currently engaging remaining Vorath military targets across all 47 systems. We are broadcasting on all frequencies, warning civilians to evacuate military zones. We are giving them time to leave, but the facilities themselves will be destroyed. Kralis checked her console and found it was true. Across Vorath space, human forces were systematically obliterating every structure, every ship, every installation that had military purpose. They were being thorough. They were being relentless. But they were not targeting civilians. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. Ambassador Park stood in the center of the chamber, as accusations flew from every direction. You are committing genocide, the Quillari representative shouted. No, Park replied calmly. We are removing a military threat. Vorath civilians are not being harmed. We are destroying infrastructure, not people. You are destroying their civilization. We are destroying their ability to destroy others. There is a difference. The Thexian ambassador, Rixthan, spoke up. Ambassador Park, the Council understands humanity's anger. The Vorath attempted to crack Earth. But this response is excessive. You are essentially erasing the Vorath as a galactic power. Yes, Park said simply. That is exactly what we are doing. You will be seen as monsters. Park's expression hardened. Better to be seen as monsters than to be extinct. Every species in this chamber has faced similar choices. You just had the luxury of making them when no one was watching. He activated a display showing historical data. The Thexians eliminated the Corsair clans completely. The Quillari rendered the Dresh unable to travel between stars. The Hexati created a plague that sterilized the Vecnil. Shall I continue? Tress. The chamber fell silent. We studied your histories, Park continued. Every species here has faced an enemy that threatened their existence. Every species chose survival. Many chose methods far more brutal than ours. The difference is that you did it when you were alone in the galaxy, before the Council existed, before anyone was watching. We do not have that luxury. We must act now, in full view of everyone, and accept the judgment that comes with it. And if the Council condemns your actions, Park met Rixthan's gaze. Then condemn us. Write it in your records that humanity chose to survive. Write that we gave warnings, offered peace, and only fought when attacked. Write that we showed more mercy to our enemies than they showed to us. And then ask yourselves, what would you have done? No one answered. The operation took 11 days. When it was complete, the Vorath Empire existed only in history. Their civilians lived on their worlds, but they had no warships, no weapons factories, no military infrastructure of any kind. They were placed under Galactic Council supervision, forbidden from developing military technology for a minimum of 100 years. Commander Zekthar was tried by the Council for attempted genocide. He was found guilty and imprisoned for life. Kralis testified against him. She explained how the Vorath military leadership had ignored warnings, escalated unnecessarily, and ultimately attempted to exterminate humanity when losing. Her testimony was detailed, damning, and completely honest. After the trial, Admiral Chen met with Kralis privately. You did the right thing, Chen said. You saved your people. Kralis' orange eyes dimmed. I betrayed my commander. You chose your species over one individual's pride. That is not betrayal. That is wisdom. My people will see me as a traitor. Some will. Others will see you as the one who prevented total annihilation. Chen paused. We could have killed every Vorath. We had the capacity. We chose not to because of individuals like you who tried to stop this war. Remember that. Krallis nodded slowly. What happens now? Now, your people rebuild. Without conquest. Without aggression. And if they need help, they can ask. Would you help us? After everything? Admiral Chen smiled grimly. We are not in the business of kicking people when they are down. We just make sure they cannot hurt anyone when they stand up. 3 months after the end of the Vorath War, the Galactic Council convened its most controversial session in centuries. Ambassador Jinsu Park walked into the chamber, knowing that every eye would be on him, every voice raised against humanity. He walked calmly to his platform and waited. The chamber was packed. Representatives from 217 species filled the space, and the air hummed with angry whispers. The Vorath situation had been resolved, but the cost had left the galaxy deeply uncomfortable. Humanity had demonstrated power that no one had suspected existed, and power without oversight made everyone nervous. The council speaker, an ancient being called a Validian, who had held the position for 300 years, raised its crystalline appendage for silence. This council is called to address the actions of humanity during the recent conflict with the Vorath Empire. Ambassador Park, you will answer for your species. Park bowed slightly. I am prepared to answer any questions. Number 4. The Quelari representative was first to speak. Ambassador, your species destroyed the entire military capacity of the Vorath Empire in 11 days. You reduced a power that conquered 47 systems over 2 centuries to helplessness in less than 2 weeks. How do you justify this excessive response? Park's reply was measured. With respect, Representative, the response was not excessive. It was proportional to the threat. The Vorath declared their intention to exterminate humanity. They attacked our colonies. They attempted to use planet-cracker weapons on Earth. We responded by eliminating their ability to carry out those threats. You could have stopped after the first battle. They were clearly defeated. No, they were not. After their fleet was destroyed at New Sol, they continued attacking. After their supply lines were cut, they targeted civilians. After their military was crippled, they attempted genocide. At what point should we have assumed they would stop? Park paused. We gave them chances to surrender. Multiple chances. They chose to escalate every single time. Well, a new voice joined the discussion. It was a Hexati representative, a species known for their aggressive past. Ambassador Park, many species in this chamber have histories of violence. We understand the need for self-defense. But your actions suggest something more concerning. You did not simply defend yourselves. You systematically destroyed an empire. That suggests planning. That suggests you were prepared for this war before it started. Park nodded slowly. You are correct. We were prepared. Shocked murmurs filled the chamber. Humanity has been in space for 80 years, Park continued. In that time, we have studied every major conflict in galactic history. We have analyzed every extinct species and asked ourselves why they failed to survive. The answer was always the same. They were not prepared when the threat came. They hesitated. They hoped for mercy. They died. His voice grew harder. We decided humanity would not die that way. So yes, we prepared. We built weapons. We trained soldiers. We developed strategies specifically designed to counter aggressive species. Is that wrong? The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species agreed with humanity's approach. Others were horrified by the implications. The Validian speaker called for order, but it took several minutes to restore calm. The Thexian ambassador, Rixthan, spoke next. His voice was thoughtful rather than accusatory. Ambassador Park, I have studied your species since first contact. I believe I understand your motivations. but you must understand the concern you have created. Humanity appeared to be a peaceful species. You engaged in trade and diplomacy. You built schools and cultural centers. Then, when threatened, you revealed military capacity that rivals the greatest powers in the galaxy. This suggests deception. Does it? Park asked. Or does it suggest that peace and military strength are not mutually exclusive? We prefer peace. We choose peace when possible, but we are not naive enough to be defenseless. He looked around the chamber. How many species here maintain standing militaries? How many have weapons, far beyond what they need, for simple self-defense? All of you. You just never had to use them against an Empire-level threat while being watched by the entire galaxy. A smaller species, the Drift, whose homeworld had once been conquered by the Vorath, spoke up. Ambassador Park, my species was enslaved by the Vorath for 40 years before we were liberated by the Council. I say this clearly. Humanity saved us. If the Vorath had not been stopped, they would have continued conquering. They would have enslaved more species, perhaps even species in this chamber. The Drift representative looked around defiantly. Humanity did what the Council was too afraid to do. They stopped a predator empire. I, for one, am grateful. More arguments erupted. The galaxy was divided. Some saw humanity as saviors. Others saw them as a dangerous new threat. The debate raged for hours. Finally, Ambassador Park raised his hand for permission to speak. The Validian speaker granted it. Members of the Council, I understand your fear. I understand your uncertainty. You are asking yourselves if humanity will become the next Vorath, if we will use our power to conquer instead of defend. Park's voice was steady but carried weight. So, let me be absolutely clear about humanity's position going forward. The chamber fell silent. We do not want an empire. We do not want to rule others. We do not want to be feared. If a species threatens us with extinction, we will respond with overwhelming force. If a species attacks our civilians, we will hold them accountable. If a species attempts genocide, we will ensure they can never attempt it again. This is not negotiable. That sounds like a threat, someone said. No. It is a promise. A promise to ourselves and to any species that values peaceful coexistence. Park activated a display, showing a document. Humanity is offering mutual defense pacts to any species interested. We will share defensive technology. We will coordinate on security matters. We will help protect each other from aggression, but we will not force anyone to join. We will not demand tribute or territory. We simply offer partnership. Rixthan studied the document carefully. These terms are remarkably generous. You ask for very little in return for significant military support. We ask for peace, Park said simply. We ask that species stop seeing conflict as the first solution to disagreements. We ask that the galaxy become a place where strength is used to protect, not to conquer. Over the next 3 days, representatives debated humanity's proposal. Many were skeptical. Some were openly hostile. But slowly, a consensus emerged. The first to sign the Mutual Defense Pact was the Drift. Then, 3 other small species that had suffered under Vorath conquest. Then, surprisingly, the Thexians. Rix then explained his species' reasoning. Humanity has demonstrated capability and restraint. They could have destroyed the Vorath completely. They chose not to. This suggests wisdom. We would rather have them as allies than remain uncertain of their intentions. Within 6 months, 34 species had signed defense pacts with humanity. The agreements varied in details but shared common principles. Mutual defense, shared technology, and commitment to diplomatic solutions before military ones. The galaxy began to change. Aggressive expansion, which had been common for centuries, dropped by 78% in the first year after the Vorath War. Predator species looked at what happened to the Vorath and reconsidered their strategies. Prey species found new confidence under the protection of mutual defense agreements. It was not perfect. Some species still refused to trust humanity. Some saw the defense pacts as the foundation of a new empire in disguise. But most recognized that the galaxy had fundamentally shifted. In the former Vorath territories, a different kind of change was happening. Kralis, now appointed as a civilian liaison between her species and the Galactic Council, worked tirelessly to rebuild Vorath society. They had to learn to exist without conquest, without aggression, without the belief that might made right. It was hard. Many Vorath struggled with the transition. Some refused to accept their defeat and plotted futile revenge. But others, especially the younger generation, saw an opportunity. They had grown up in an empire that demanded constant expansion. Now they could choose different paths. Kralis stood before a gathering of young Vorath on the homeworld. They looked at her with a mixture of respect and suspicion. She was the one who had betrayed Commander Zekthar, the one who had testified against Vorath leadership. Some called her a hero. Others called her a traitor. "I know many of you are angry," she began. "You are angry at the humans, angry at the Council, angry at me for choosing survival over pride." She paused. "But I want you to understand something. The humans did not destroy us because they hated us. They destroyed our military because we tried to exterminate them. There is a difference." A young Vorath male stood up. "They humiliated us. They made us weak. No. We made ourselves weak by assuming strength meant the ability to destroy others. True strength is the ability to build, to create, to protect." The humans understood this. We did not. Another voice called out. "What future do we have now? We cannot defend ourselves. We cannot expand. What are we?" Kralis smiled sadly. "We are survivors. We are a species that made terrible mistakes and lived to learn from them. That is rare in this galaxy. Most species that chose our path are extinct. The Keltarians, the Movask. They are gone. We are still here, because the humans showed mercy, when we showed none." The gathering was quiet for a moment. Then, an elderly Vorath, a veteran of many conquests, spoke. "I fought in 37 campaigns. I believed the Vorath were invincible. I believed conquest was our destiny." He paused. "I was wrong. We were never invincible. We were simply lucky that we never faced an enemy like humanity. An enemy that prepared, that studied, that refused to surrender, even when threatened with extinction." He looked at the younger Vorath. "Learn from our mistakes. Choose better than we did." Back on Earth, Jinsu Park sat in his office and looked at the memorial wall. It listed the names of every human who died during the Vorath War. There were not many, relatively speaking, 47 soldiers. No civilians, thanks to early evacuations and defensive preparations. But 47 people who would not go home to their families. Admiral Chen entered the office. "The latest reports from Vorath space are encouraging. Civilian government is stabilizing. No signs of military reconstruction. Kralis is doing good work." Park nodded. "She is a good person who served a bad government. I am glad she survived. Some of our own people are still angry. They think we should have been harsher. Some of theirs think we were too harsh. That is the nature of war. Everyone judges from their own perspective." Park turned to look at Chen. "Do you think we did the right thing?" Chen was quiet for a moment. "I think we did the necessary thing. Whether it was right? History will decide that. But I can sleep at night knowing we gave them every chance to stop. We warned them. We showed restraint until they attempted genocide. Everything that happened after that was their choice. And if another species makes the same choice? If someone else threatens us, then we do it again. And again. As many times as necessary. Until the galaxy understands that humanity will not be victims." Chen's expression softened. But I hope it never comes to that. I hope the Vorath were the last lesson that needed to be taught. Park looked back at the memorial wall. 47 lives. That was the price of survival. The Vorath paid much more. They lost an entire empire. Their military. Their status as a galactic power. They lost their future as conquerors. He paused. But they gained a future as something else. Something better, perhaps. Do you really believe that? I have to. Because if I believe we simply created another tragedy, if I believe this was nothing more than one species crushing another, then what was the point? No, I have to believe that sometimes breaking something is the only way to rebuild it correctly. Chen nodded. The galaxy is watching us now. Everything we do will be scrutinized. We set a precedent. We showed that peaceful species can be dangerous when threatened. Other species will either respect that or fear it. Let them choose which, Park said. We will treat them according to their choice. Those who want peace will find us generous partners. Those who want war? He looked at the memorial wall again. They will find out why the Vorath no longer exist as an empire. The story of the Vorath War spread throughout the galaxy. It was told in many ways, from many perspectives. Some versions painted humanity as vengeful destroyers. Others portrayed them as righteous defenders. The truth, as always, lay somewhere in between. But one fact was undeniable. The galaxy had changed. The Vorath Empire was gone. Erased not from existence but from power. And humanity had demonstrated that choosing peace did not mean accepting victimhood. In the years that followed, aggressive expansion continued to decline. Mutual defense pacts multiplied. Trade increased. Cultural exchanges flourished. The galaxy did not become a paradise. Conflicts still occurred, but they were smaller, more contained, more often resolved through diplomacy than warfare. And when new species joined the galactic community, they were told the story of the Vorath. They were told about an empire that thought itself invincible, about a species that threatened genocide, about what happened when they chose that path. The lesson was clear. In this galaxy, strength meant protection, not conquest. Those who forgot this lesson paid dearly. The last species that challenged humanity had not been destroyed, but they had been transformed, remade, their capacity for harm removed permanently. It was a mercy they had not shown others. It was a mercy that came with a price both species would remember forever. Jinsu Park often thought about Commander Zekthar in his prison cell, wondering if the old warrior understood yet, understood that humanity had not wanted this war, had not wanted to destroy the Vorath Empire, had simply refused to die quietly. Perhaps one day, Zekthar would understand. Perhaps one day, he would realize that the humans had actually saved his species by stopping them before they encountered someone less merciful. Or perhaps he would die still believing the Vorath were victims. Either way, the galaxy would remember. And that memory would keep the peace far better than any weapon ever could. The great hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with lights from 1,000 worlds. Representatives from 63 species gathered to celebrate a special day. It had been exactly 247 years since humanity disappeared from galactic affairs. Council leader Zekthar stood at the central platform, his 4 arms raised in triumph. His scales gleamed blue under the lights. His voice echoed through the chamber. Peace. That began when the humans finally understood they did not belong among the stars. Laughter rippled through the assembled delegates. The humans had always been strange. They asked too many questions. They worried about threats that did not exist. And then, one day, they simply left. Their colonies went silent. Their ships vanished. The galaxy moved on without them. In the back of the Great Hall, a young woman sat alone. Sarah Kim was one of maybe 1,000 humans still living in council space. She worked as an archivist in the Forgotten Records Department. Nobody paid attention to old files anymore. That was exactly why Sarah loved her job. She listened to Zekthar's speech, and felt anger burning in her chest. Her people were not cowards. They did not run away. But she had no proof, just a feeling that something was wrong with the official story. The humans were weak. Zexthor continued. They could not handle the complexity of galactic politics. They returned to their little corner of space to hide. And we are better for it. More laughter. More agreement. Sarah stood up quietly and left the hall. Nobody noticed. She walked through the crystal corridors of Vatharon Prime, the Council's home world. Everything here was beautiful and clean. No wars had touched this place in centuries. The Council species had built a perfect civilization. Or so they believed. Sarah took the old elevator down to the archive levels. These floors were deep underground, where the ancient records were stored. Most files were digital now, but the oldest treaties and agreements were still kept in physical form. Paper and metal plates that could last forever. She had been searching through these files for 3 years, looking for anything about humanity's departure. The official records said humans chose to leave. They voted to abandon their council seat. But Sarah had found small inconsistencies, dates that did not match, references to documents that no longer existed. Today, she found something new. It was a metal plate, stored in a container marked with symbols she barely recognized, old human military codes. Her hands shook as she pulled it out and placed it under the scanner. The text appeared on her screen. It was a treaty, signed 247 years ago, by the human representative and the council leadership. But this was not a withdrawal agreement. It was a volunteer contract. Sarah read it 3 times to make sure she understood. The words were clear. Humanity had discovered something in the outer reaches of the galaxy. An ancient threat, something that had destroyed civilizations before, something that was coming back. The humans had asked the council for help. The council had laughed. They said the threat was impossible. Just human paranoia. So humanity made a different choice. They would go alone. They would evacuate their colonies near council space. They would take their ships and their people to the edge of the galaxy. They would build a defensive line. They would guard the outer reaches and buy time for the rest of the galaxy. Even if the council did not believe them. Even if the council forgot them. The treaty had one simple clause. When the threat reveals itself, humanity requests that the council remember this agreement and send aid. Sarah's hands were shaking harder now. She copied the file to her personal device and ran back to the elevator. She had to tell the council. They had to know the truth. The celebration was still going when she burst into the Great Hall. Security guards moved to stop her, but she shouted, "I have proof! Proof about humanity!" The hall went silent. Zexthor looked down at her with annoyance. "The archivist's child," he said. "What nonsense do you bring us now?" Sarah held up her device. A treaty, signed 247 years ago. Humanity did not abandon the galaxy. They went to defend it. They are out there right now, fighting something we refuse to believe existed. She transferred the document to the main display. The treaty appeared for everyone to see. Zexthor barely glanced at it. An old paper. Probably a fake. The humans were always dramatic. They invented threats to make themselves seem important. But what if it's real? Sarah demanded. What if they have been fighting for 247 years while we celebrated their absence? Then they are fools, Zexthor said coldly. The outer reaches are empty. Our long-range sensors would detect any threat. There is nothing there but human paranoia. Other council members nodded in agreement. A few looked uncomfortable, but none spoke up for Sarah. Ambassador Thelnara of the Velkorian delegation stood slowly. She was old, even by Velkorian standards. Her scales had faded to pale gray. "I knew humans once," she said quietly. "They did not lie about dangers. Perhaps we should investigate." "Investigate what?" Zexthor snapped. "Empty space? We have real problems to address. Trade disputes. Mining rights. Not ancient human fantasies. He dismissed Sira with a wave of his arms. Return to your archives, child. Stop wasting the council's time. Security guards escorted Sira out of the hall. Behind her, the celebration resumed. Nobody wanted to think about uncomfortable possibilities. Not when everything was perfect. That night, Sarah sat in her small apartment and stared at the treaty. She thought about her ancestors. About humans she had never met, who might be fighting and dying in the darkness. The council did not care. But she did. Deep in space, far beyond council territory, something changed. Sensors that had been silent for centuries suddenly screamed warnings. Energy signatures, unlike anything in recorded history, were moving toward council space. Moving fast. On Paradise Station, a luxury resort world where the wealthy from a dozen species came to relax, people went about their evening. They ate fine food. They watched beautiful sunsets. They laughed and danced. And then, between one moment and the next, they were gone. All 4 million inhabitants, 12 different species, simply vanished. The station lights kept glowing. Music still played in empty halls, but every living thing had disappeared without a trace. In the silence, strange crystalline structures began to grow. The emergency alert reached the council headquarters at dawn. Paradise Station had gone silent. All communication channels were dead. Emergency beacons were not responding. 4 million people had simply stopped existing. Sarah heard about it during her morning shift in the archives. She immediately thought of the treaty. The threat humanity had warned about. But when she tried to contact the council chambers, her messages were blocked. After yesterday's scene, she was not welcome there. Zexthor called an emergency session. This is clearly a technical failure, he told the assembled delegates. Paradise Station is old. Perhaps a power malfunction caused a communication breakdown. We are sending repair ships. But 48 hours later, 3 more colonies went dark. New Terra, Bright Harbor, the mining complex at Vex 9. Millions more people. Gone. No distress calls. No explanations. Just silence. The council sent military investigation fleets. Sarah watched the news feeds with growing dread. She knew what they would find. Nothing. Because the threat was not something that left evidence behind in ways the council understood. The fleets arrived at Paradise Station first. The commander's report was broadcast live across council space. His voice was shaking. The station is intact. Power systems are running normally. But there is nobody here. Not one person. Not one body. The restaurants still have food on the tables. Beds are still warm. But every living thing is gone. The camera feed showed empty corridors, abandoned shops, children's toys scattered on the floor. And in the central plaza, something new. Crystalline structures, black as space itself, growing up from the floor. They pulsed with a light that hurt to look at. What are those? The commander asked. Nobody had an answer. The same structures appeared at every silent colony, growing, spreading, slowly consuming the empty stations and worlds. Scientists tried to study them. 3 research ships got too close. They also went silent. Sira could not stay quiet anymore. She hacked into the council's communication network and forced her message through. Check the outer reaches. That is where it is coming from. Humanity warned us. This time, Zexthor did not laugh. He was too frightened. The council pulled up deep space sensor records. Data from the edge of the galaxy that nobody had looked at in decades. The readings were there. Had been there for weeks. Energy signatures moving toward council space from the direction humanity had disappeared toward 247 years ago. The council's automated systems had flagged them, but nobody paid attention. Why would they? Nothing dangerous came from the outer reaches. Ambassador Thel Nara requested to speak. Her voice was heavy with regret. I must confess something to this council. 200 years ago, I was a junior diplomat. I was present when the humans came to us with their warning. They showed us data, evidence of an ancient threat. We voted to seal those records. We thought the humans were being paranoid. We did not want other species to panic over nothing. The hall erupted in angry voices. Delegates shouted at each other. Accusations flew. Zexthor demanded silence. The past does not matter now. We face a present threat. We will send our full military strength to establish a defensive perimeter. 500 warships, the largest battle fleet in Council history. We will stop whatever this is. The fleet assembled within 3 days. Sierra watched them depart on the news feeds. Massive ships representing 20 different species. The pride of galactic civilization. They jumped to hyperspace with confidence. Sierra tried to warn them. She sent messages to every fleet commander. Read the human treaty. They have been fighting this for 247 years. Ask them what they know. Nobody listened to an archivist. The fleet reached the edge of Council space and formed their defensive line. Their sensors immediately detected something ahead. Something massive. The fleet commander opened a channel to Council headquarters. We have contact with unknown structures. They are not matching any known technology. Approaching to investigate. That was his last clear message. What came next was chaos. Screaming voices, ships reporting impossible readings. Reality itself was breaking down near the structures. Then weapons fire, desperate orders, calls for retreat, and then static. All 500 ships, the entire fleet, gone in less than an hour. The council chambers fell into stunned silence. Species that had not known war in centuries suddenly understood they were facing extinction, and they had no idea how to fight it. Sarah sat in her apartment and cried. Not for the council, for humanity. Her people had been right. They had sacrificed everything to hold the line, and the galaxy had forgotten them. Her computer chimed. An encrypted message on a frequency so old, her system almost did not recognize it. Ancient human military codes. She opened it with shaking hands. The message was brief. They are coming. We are holding the line. Do not know how much longer. Tell them, we tried. Sierra's tears stopped. Her people were still out there, still fighting. She had to find them. Ambassador Thelnara appeared at Sierra's door that night. She said quietly, I always did. I was just too frightened to say it. Will you help me find the humans? We need to ask for their forgiveness and their help. Before Sierra could answer, alarms blared across Vatheron Prime. The Council's sensor network detected something entering their space. A single ship. Moving fast. And it was human. The ship was ancient, covered in burn marks and hull patches. Parts of it looked like they had been welded on from other destroyed vessels. It was firing its engines in reverse, still shooting at something behind it. Something the sensors could barely detect. Something that bent light around itself. The ship broadcast on all frequencies. This is HSCS Eternal Vigil. We are compromised. Do not approach. Repeat. Do not approach. But it was too late. The ship's reactors were failing. It was going to crash. Council defense forces scrambled to intercept it. They managed to grab it with tractor beams and pull it toward an emergency landing facility. The ship's engines died completely. It coasted in, trailing debris and frozen atmosphere. The thing that had been chasing it stopped at the edge of Council space. It hung there in the darkness, watching, waiting. Then, it slowly retreated back into the outer reaches. Medical teams rushed to the crashed ship. They cut through the damaged airlock. Inside, they found 47 humans. All of them were injured. Many were unconscious. Their uniforms were torn and patched. Their bodies carried scars from burns, radiation, and wounds no medical team recognized. The ship's commander was strapped into his chair, still conscious through force of will alone. His name tag read, Commander Jae-Sung Park. He looked at the council medical team with eyes that had seen too much war. "Need to speak to the council," he said. His voice was rough. "Have a message. From Earth. From all of humanity." He tried to stand and collapsed. The medical team caught him. His last words before losing consciousness were, "Tell them we held the line. Tell them we are sorry it was not long enough." Commander Park woke up 3 days later, in a medical facility he did not recognize. Clean white walls, soft lighting. The air smelled recycled but fresh. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then, memory crashed back. The battle. The retreat. The jump into council space. A nurse approached his bed. She was Valkorian, her scales a gentle green. "Please rest, Commander. You have been through severe trauma." "No time," Park said. His throat was dry. "Need to speak to the council. Need to deliver the message. They are waiting," the nurse said quietly. "They have been waiting since you arrived." Park tried to sit up. Pain shot through his ribs. Broken. Probably. He had stopped counting his injuries years ago. The nurse helped him into a wheelchair. He hated being weak, but his legs would not support him yet. Too many combat stimulants, over too many years. His body was breaking down. They wheeled him through corridors filled with staring faces. Species from across the galaxy watched the human pass. Most had never seen one before. They whispered to each other. Some looked frightened. Good. Park thought. They should be frightened. The council chamber was exactly as he remembered from history files. Beautiful, peaceful, untouched by war. He felt a flash of bitter anger. His people had been dying for 247 years, while these people celebrated in their safe halls. Zex Thor sat at the center platform. He looked smaller than Park expected, frightened. "Commander Park," he said formally, "you requested to speak to this council." "We are listening." Park took a breath. The words he had to say had been carried by too many dying humans. Words he had promised to deliver, if he ever got the chance. "The Devourers have broken through," he said. His voice carried clearly in the silent chamber. "We have held them for 247 years. Humanity has lost 18 billion people defending the barrier. We cannot hold anymore." In the barrier, the council chamber erupted in shocked voices. 18 billion. The number was too large to comprehend. Zexthor demanded silence. "Explain. What are these Devourers? Why did humanity never tell us?" Park laughed. It came out harsh and broken. "We told you. 247 years ago. You called us paranoid. You said the threat was impossible. So we stopped asking for permission and started doing what needed to be done." He pulled a data chip from his uniform pocket. His hands shook from exhaustion. "This contains everything. Our discovery. Our warning. Your refusal. And what we did next." Ambassador Thelnara took the chip and loaded it into the council's main display. The data began to play. It started 250 years ago. Human deep space explorers found something in the outer reaches. Ruins. Ancient structures from a civilization that died thousands of years before. And in those ruins, a warning. The warning spoke of the Devourers. Entities that existed partially outside normal reality. They consumed everything. Matter. Energy. Life itself. They came in cycles. Every 10,000 years, they returned to feed. The ancient civilization had failed to stop them. They left their warning hoping the next civilization would succeed where they had failed. Humanity brought this evidence to the council. The data showed council leader Zexthor's predecessor dismissing it. "Impossible," the old leader had said. "Our science proves such entities cannot exist. The humans are seeing patterns in random data." The video showed human representatives pleading, "Please, even if you think we are wrong, help us prepare. Just in case." The council voted. 47 species against. Only 16 for. The motion failed, so humanity made their choice. They evacuated their colonies near Council space. They pulled back their civilians. They converted their economy entirely to war production. Earth itself became a fortress world. Every human served the military in some capacity. Children were taught tactics before they learned to read, and they built the barrier. A defensive line stretching across dozens of star systems in the outer reaches. Thousands of ships, hundreds of battle stations, mines, weapons platforms, sensor nets, everything humanity could build. They waited. Some hoped they were wrong, that the Council was right and the threat would never come. Then, 17 years after humanity withdrew, the Devourers arrived. The display showed battle footage. Park watched the Council delegates' faces as they saw what humanity had been fighting. The Devourers were not ships. They were structures that bent reality around them. They did not follow physics. They could appear and disappear. They consumed everything they touched, leaving nothing behind. Not even atoms. Human ships threw themselves at the Devourers. Kinetic weapons, nuclear missiles, experimental energy weapons. Everything worked for a moment. Nothing worked forever. The Devourers adapted. They learned. They became harder to kill, so humanity adapted too. They developed new tactics, sacrifice plays, using ships as weapons when ammunition ran out, ramming runs, fighting in ways that did not make tactical sense but somehow worked against enemies that existed partially outside reality. The footage showed a young captain, maybe 25 years old, calmly ordering her crew to abandon ship before she rammed her destroyer into a devourer construct. She died with a smile on her face because her sacrifice saved a colony ship carrying 10,000 civilians. Park's voice was flat as he narrated, "That was my sister. She died 186 years ago. I was 12. After the funeral, I enlisted." The Council watched in horror as the scope of the war became clear. Hundreds of battles. Thousands of ships lost. Entire defense stations consumed. And always, humanity fell back, rebuilt, and returned to the line. "We have been fighting for 247 years, Park said. 7 generations of humans have known only war. We have lost 18 billion people. That is 90% of our pre-war population. Almost everyone. Earth's population is now 3 billion. All soldiers or support personnel. We have no poets anymore. No artists. No philosophers. Just soldiers and the people who keep soldiers fighting." He looked at Zexthor directly. "We did this for you. For all of you. Because someone had to stand in the darkness. We hoped you would join us eventually. But even when you did not, we kept fighting. Because that is what humans do." Zexthor looked like he might be sick. "Why did you not send another message? Another warning?" "We did," Park said quietly. 53 times over the last 247 years. Every message was blocked by your automated systems. Marked as human propaganda. You did not want to hear from us. So eventually, we stopped trying. Ambassador Thelnara was crying. "What can we do? How can we help?" Park pulled up a star map. It showed the current battle lines. The Devourers had broken through in 17 places. Humanity was falling back toward their final defensive position, a line of battle stations they called the Solomon Line, built in orbit around humanity's remaining colony worlds. "If you want to survive," Park said, "send everything you have to the Solomon Line. We will teach you how to fight them. It is not complicated. You throw everything at them and hope some of it works. You sacrifice ships to buy time. You never give up. Ever." He paused. His next words were the hardest. "But you need to hurry. The main Devourer fleet is moving. It is heading for Earth. Our projections give us maybe 30 days before the final assault begins. Earth has become our last fortress. If it falls, humanity is finished. And without us holding the line, the Devourers will sweep through council space in less than a year. The council chamber was silent. Every delegate understood what they were hearing.